Welcome back to a Wretched. No doubt there is not a single formerly professing Christian sitting in prison who looks back and says, yeah, this is what I was hoping for all along. Please note that illustration does not let you off the hook. If you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm never going to end up in jail, the point is, if we are not perpetually mindful we actually could, then we're already on the road to backsliding. When you and I take sin lightly and think, that will never be me, that couldn't happen to moi, look out, you are already in spiritual danger. Sin deceives. Do not let yourself be lied to. John Bunyan, you may recall, spent some time in prison himself, not because he was a backslider, but because he refused to not preach the gospel. He was one of them there dissenters in the 17th century who found himself in the clink because he insisted on preaching the gospel. This man had a lot of time to think and write. Pilgrim's Progress was the result of his time spent in jail. 12 years. He could have walked out the door because there wasn't even a lock on it if he would simply promise to not preach the gospel. He said, I can't do that, so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to think and I'm going to pray and I'm going to study and I'm going to write. And he wrote the second best-selling book of all time, Pilgrim's Progress. It is an allegory that describes you and me so regularly to a T, it's kind of frightening. If you've never read it, get your nose into it. You won't be able to take it out. And as you see Pilgrim on his march to Celestial City, he is confronted, bombarded, temptations, lies, insults, and yet he marched on with his eye on the prize. And if you and I do not have the determination of Pilgrim, look out, we could go sliding away. Number 6 way to backslide, similar to 7, you trade Christian community for distinctly unchristian company. You don't just have unbelieving friends. Maybe that's all you have. And those are the ones you prefer over Christians. That's a big problem. Why? Because 1 John tells us that one of the signs that you are soundly saved is that you like hanging out with one another. Furthermore, in Acts chapter 4, we see that fellowshipping with believers is a way for you to be fed spiritually so you don't backslide. Fellowship is a big deal for the Christian. May I ask you a question? Are you hanging out intentionally with believers, and not just to talk about politics, not just to talk about the latest atrocity and, oh, those liberals and what they're doing? Perfectly fine conversation, but fellowship is centered around Jesus Christ, what he is doing in everybody's life, what he is doing in the world, what he has been teaching you through the Word. That's fellowship. And if you are not consuming it, look out. You're starving, and you don't even feel the hunger pangs. The number 5 way to a backslide, determine that Christians are hypocrites because they continue to sin. The emphasis here is that you look at others and think, tisk, 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 but that's not me. Other Christians are such hypocrites, aren't they? Always sinning like that. Never understanding the way that I do. Oh, the hypocrisy. Careful. That could be a sign that you're already on the path to backsliding because you are not taking heed lest you too shall fall, and you have forgotten simul justus et peccator. Yes, we're justified, but we keep on sinning. Paul considered himself the chief of sinners. You and I would do well, now that he is dead, to grab that available crown, put it on our own head, and never forget, I am the chief of sinners, because if you do, you might be backsliding. Number 4, you stop going to church. Am I looking at you? Am I looking at you? Have you stopped going to church for any reason, and now you can, but it just seems easier to not? Or you've discovered, I dig online church. Those two words don't go together. You're either online or you're in church, but you can't be doing both. Unless, of course, you're sitting in church and you're looking at your phone online, and that would be a sin too. My point is, if you have an attitude toward church that says, I'd rather not, and you will use any excuse that isn't even valid to stay away from church, I'm telling you, you're already backsliding. You're not in danger of it. You're actually doing it. Don't be deceived. Number 3, you isolate yourself from Christian fellowship. Is this the 3rd time John Bunyan has warned us? If you do not like hanging out with Christians, you're in danger. I think it is. Number 2, you neglect your devotions and stop battling sin. Not sure why these two go together, but I think they go together because they actually go together. If you're not doing your devotions, if you're not in the Word, you're not going to be fighting against sin. Why? Acts chapter 4, I'm telling you, fellowship, hearing good preaching in church, hearing it regularly, reading your Bible. You're just feeding your soul. You're going to get stronger every day, just like Chicago. You are going to become a Christian who hates sin, who loves righteousness, but only if you are partaking of the means of growth, fellowship, prayer, watching and participating in the ordinances of the church, listening to preaching, and hanging out with other believers, which leads us to the number 1 way to backslide. You stop meditating on the gospel. Oh, I know. Jerry Bridges says I need to preach the gospel to myself every day. I got it. And yet, perhaps you are failing to do one of the best things that you can do to strengthen your soul. Contemplate the cross daily. Hey, I'm Todd. I'm going to be your Uber driver. What's your destination?
2054 Kemple Lane.
No. Your eternal destination. The liberals, they brought in Pelagianism. It's the old Sabellian heresy, denying the Trinitarian Godhead. 3 persons, 1 God, not to the Sabellians. No. They would say that it's actually just 1 God.
Please, somebody!